this so-called ceasefire deal that Trump put in place has come into effect, and again, I think it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors, right? This guy has no interest in peace. Neither does Netanyahu. They are, Trump is basically the opposable thumb of Zionism, of the U.S. empire. They're all working together on the same side. Trump sent Steve Witkoff, who's his envoy, and then he sent Jared Kushner, who is his son-in-law, and basically, an equivalent thief in a suit, a sleazy thief in a suit, who is only there to really pick the meat off of Gaza's bones, like the property development vulture that he is, right? That's the Trump family. That is the Trump family. They are defined by their property development, just like the Bin Laden family are defined by construction, and the Bush family are defined by oil. These people, they care only about their bottom line, only. And it's not that Trump is any different from previous US presidents, but I'm giving you his background, and that's why. And again, this photo that you see here, where you have Netanyahu, Kushner, Witkoff, and basically, I mean, you're looking at a photo. I know there's an American flag, and there's also an Israeli flag on the table to kind of signify, oh, these are both sides talking. But really, what you're looking at is four Ashkenazi Jewish men. Okay, when I say Ashkenazi, I mean that they're Eastern European. So they're not. I know they tell you that they're from the region, but they just come from Ukraine, Poland, etc. Okay, they're converts. They're not the actual Jews that they claim to be. But you're looking at four Ashkenazi Jewish men deciding what is going to happen in Palestine, like as if it belongs to them. So it's extraordinarily colonial, right? This photograph. It's extraordinarily colonial and imperialist, right? And I suppose if you didn't have four Ashkenazi Jewish men sitting around a table and deciding, right, as if it's their right to decide Palestine's fate, well, you would probably have maybe four French or English men sitting around a table and doing the same shit. Okay. So here you have the first phase that was applied this morning. When I say first phase, again, it's a joke to even talk about this thing, because anytime you want something to fail, put phases in it, right? It's like that CIA manual on how to sabotage groups. You just create a bunch of committees to delay and cause arguments and discord, and then in the end the thing crumbles. So the first so-called phase of this so-called peace deal is that the Israelis have to withdraw to this line. That is, I mean, it's a bloody joke. I showed you the map last time. Let me pull it out again. But the line is inside of Gaza. It's not outside Gaza. It's in Gaza. So when we call it a withdrawal, it's not a withdrawal. A withdrawal means you get out. A withdrawal means that you leave the territory. You're withdrawing, right? That's not what this is. That is not what this is. This whole thing is basically the Israelis move to one section of Gaza. So, if you will, it's sort of a perimeter outside. Okay, inside. Excuse me. Here's the image. You can see it on your screens now. Okay, you see the yellow line? That's what I'm talking about. So the Israelis are still in Gaza. they've just moved a little bit. They've just moved over there. But they're still in Gaza. And then in the other phase, they'll move to the red line. And then what is this at the end? That's the final phase. The final phase is still Gaza, besieged and encircled by Israeli occupation forces. So if you think that this is going to bring peace to anyone, I mean, you're kidding yourself. You're dreaming. But in any case, I'll show you the clips. Like, these are the Israelis moving to the yellow line, right? What I said on Twitter is that it's such a shame that no one was there to throw a bunch of shoes and produce, like tomatoes and stuff, at these Gestapo Waffen-SS armored divisions. Here you can see another piece of armor that was left behind by these cowards. I mean, cowards is too kind, honestly. It's an insult to cowards to compare the Israelis to them. And so you have you know, all these columns of Israeli bulldozers. Really, for me, the bulldozer is kind of the Israelis' national mascot, if you will, right? The bulldozer, the caterpillar bulldozer. You get the idea. Now, at the same time, I don't want to disparage I don't want to disparage and make light of the fact that, you know, people in Gaza are getting respite from this so-called ceasefire. Again, I say so-called because I don't know how long it's going to last. These images I'm about to show you, we saw the same thing in January, the exact same thing. Look at all these people going north. Now, again, if you look at Gaza, I mean, you can walk from, you know, southern Gaza to the north, like it's, what is it, 30 kilometers? You can do that in a day. I've walked 30 kilometers in a day. You can do that in a day. So it's not that big, right? It's really a small enclave. But these images of people walking all the way up to go back to their destroyed homes, we saw them in January. So forgive me for being a little skeptical, right? These images are from today, okay? You can see, I mean, it's a sea of people, right? These are Holocaust survivors. They're Holocaust survivors. It's so insane that you can be standing in Beirut, you know, or Tel Aviv, and if you just walk down that coastline, you will reach Gaza. It's insane to think about that. When I was in Lebanon a few months ago, I was literally thinking about that. I was, you know, driving along the sea and thinking, like, if I literally just walked all the way down, I would reach Gaza. It's really insane. But these are the images that I'm talking about. You see on the left, you've got January. This is 2025, the so-called first ceasefire, and then so on the left is January, and this is now October on the right. But people, there's no question, people are happy. You know, they're glad that they have some kind of respite, some relief from the slaughter. You know, they're very bittersweet images, right? And you have here two twins that found themselves that have been separated during the war, during the genocide, right? People just kind of out and about celebrating. So there's no doubt people are happy, and you know, of course, they've every right to be. But our concern is that this is all just smoke and mirrors. It's temporary, and that it's going to get worse or just go back to the same. And you know, in Jerusalem, they were also celebrating, handing out sweets and so on. So I'll show you some more of these clips. It's a riot, honestly. It's a riot. I love it. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Now this kid, listen to what he's got to say.
شعب الجبارين احنا بنموت مليون مرة قاعدين في غزة. احنا شعب الجبارين يا عمي. فيش حد قدنا في غزة. فيش حد بيساعدنا يا عمي. بنموت قاعدين احنا يا عمي. بنروح على الموت عشان نجيب اكل. بنموت قاعدين يا الله. دارنا نزلت. ودار عمي. وبن عمي استشهد في سكين. والله تعبنا من الحياة كلها. تعبنا يا الله مش قادر اشيل شيء.
You know, how can I put this? The only thing I want in my life is to be as tough as Palestinians in Gaza. That's the only thing I want. Harder than nuclear nails, honestly. Harder than nuclear nails.
لكل العالم هذا علم العز. هذا علم العز. هذا علم العز. هذا علم فلسطين. قديش ترامب تآمر علينا وقديش النت نتنياهو طامر علينا انهم يهددونا من غزة. شايف زي ما انت شايف ولا بيت ضايل، لكن رسالة لكل العالم، رسالة لكل العالم. والله لا يقطعونا نقطع، ما بنترك غزة ولا أي شبل بغزة.
Look at the destruction is incomprehensible, frankly. I'll show you the aerial images first of all. Just look at this comparison. So you can see how it used to be before, and then where the line is, where the divide is, you can see how it is now. You know, genocide, I feel like, is a bit too conservative as a term. Because genocide implies that you're just killing the people. But if you look at the environment, you look at the land, the buildings, the infrastructure, it's been razed to the ground. This is different from genocide, in my opinion, right? Because you could, technically speaking, you could carry out a genocide without touching the environment or the infrastructure, technically, right? And genocide is not contingent upon whether you're successful, how many you kill. It's all about the intent, right? It's are you trying to wipe this people out? Is the answer yes? Then that qualifies as genocide. So we know that it's genocide because Israeli said that on October 9th, which is like literally a year ago. 2 years ago now, exactly 2 years ago. So you had Gallant, the former defense minister, who's saying we're going to cut off the food, electricity, water, fuel. So that's one thing, but you look at that, and I mean, there are a bunch of ways to describe this: ecocide, etc. Right? Look at the buildings. I mean, none of this was done with nuclear weapons. This was done with conventional arms, and it nonetheless looks like it was done with nuclear weapons. If you calculate the brute, the power of in terms of TNT. It's multiple Hiroshimas. I mean, just all over the Gaza Strip, all over. It looks like this. So again, it's not just genocide. I think, and the Israelis love to pull people into discussions. Oh, how dare you accuse Jews of genocide? And they like to get into this whole fuck off with this side argument. I'm not getting into that. You can call it a discotheque if you like. I don't give a shit what you call it. You can call it Teletubbies primetime TV. It's wrong. It's evil. I don't give a crap what you describe it as. I really do not care. So I don't get into mud fights with pigs and wrestle with them about what word are we going to use. I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's wrong. The word is so bloody irrelevant. So irrelevant. And even then, like I was just saying a moment ago, it doesn't even suffice to describe what I'm showing you.
Ya Allah, ya Jama'a. Ya Allah.
So people are going back to their homes, filming these things today, and it speaks for itself, really.
Ya Allah, حجم الدمار. يا الله حجم الدمار يا جماعة. أقسم بالله إشي ما بتصدق. الله ينتقم منهم. هذا الشارع كان من أحلى شوارع غزة.
So he's saying that this used to be one of the nicest streets in Gaza.
شارع الجلاء من أحلى شوارع غزة ومن أكثر الشوارع حيوية والشارع الرئيسي من شوارع مدينة غزة.
Yeah, and one of the most important, one of the main streets in Gaza.
هذا المكان اللي أنا بتواجد فيه حاليا وأنتم شايفين حجم الدمار فيه.
You get the idea. You get the idea. This is one of the journalists from Gaza, and here you've got Israelis showing off on Twitter, saying, "May the entire world remember this lesson forever." Like they're really proud of what they've done. They're very proud. Again, you can see. You get the idea. It's completely flattened, utterly flattened. I mean, again, it's astonishing. You compare that to anything else, and it just falls short, really. So, and of course, there's the images that I can't show you because I've noticed in the last couple of years that I'm doing this that when there's something that's bad for Israel, it looks like this publicly. So, now you have to log into Twitter to see things. They'll just say it's age restricted or the link doesn't work. But really what they're doing is they're shielding Israel. That's what it is. It's a form of censorship. But basically what people are coming across is not just destroy buildings. They're coming across cadavers, corpses, human remains, bones, skeletons. And it's absolutely horrific, you know, and I said this on Twitter, and I'll say it to you again right now. As soon as it's possible for press to go into Gaza, I will be one of the first. I don't even need an interpreter because I'm fluent in Arabic, and you know, we have the same dialect in Syria as in Palestine. It's almost identical, so I understand almost everything, and likewise. So, you know, I just need a way to get in. Right now, the Israelis are blocking journalists from getting in still. They're blocking doctors from getting in still. Here's one of the, this is Mu'tazim, who's one of the journalists in Gaza, and he filmed this today.
Good morning from Al Zaytun neighborhood. As you see, the Israeli occupation forces have never left anything for people to live in. All homes were destroyed, including mine. Here I used to live before the Israeli occupation. Invasion and destruction of the whole area. People are trying to look for anything left.
So they killed his third son yesterday during the so-called ceasefire. This man. They've also, during this genocide last 2 years, they've killed his wife and a bunch of his other children. I've lost count, frankly. And he's not the only one. The worst part is that he's not even a special case. Like so many people in Gaza have lost multiple family members, regardless whether they're journalists or not. That it's you know, simply beyond the pale. So that death toll that they keep putting on the media, that it's about 60,000. That's just people that arrive at the morgue. So that's someone where, you know, someone's brought their body to the morgue and they've been able to say, yeah, this person is dead. We've got an additional dead body here. But a lot of people, tens of thousands of people, if not more, are buried under the rubble still. You can see from the videos I just showed you, no reconstruction, no cleaning up, nothing has happened. So there's tons of people still that have not been accounted for, that are you know, missing or dead, and in most cases when they're missing, it likely means, you know, killed. Here's another journalist in Gaza talking about Anas al-Sharif. So Anas was assassinated by the Israelis a few months ago. He's one of Al Jazeera's journalists, and this is his nephew, who is his cameraman.
كانت لي أمنيتين في هذه الدنيا. الأولى قبل استشهاد خالي وحبيب روحي أنس، أن تأتي هذه اللحظة وأن أكون خلف الكاميرا كما كنت طيلة أيام هذه الحرب وهذه الإبادة، وأن أوثق لحظة إعلان وقف إطلاق النار على لسانه كما حدث في الاتفاق الماضي. كانت هذه أقصى أمنية لي.
So you've got these aid trucks now, a few aid trucks that are coming into Gaza.
والله أنا نفسيتي مرتاحة ومبسوط. إخواتنا الفلسطينيين وأنا مستعد بقالي 90 يوم برا البيت ومستعد أفضل على كل عند لما هم يكونوا تمام يعني. الحمد لله.
You can see that they're all lined up outside the Gaza Strip. Now, why am I showing you the aid trucks? Because, well, for two reasons. The Israelis kept telling us that they're not blocking any aid trucks, right? Again, it's almost an art, the way the Israelis gaslight you. It's almost an art, almost, right? Not quite, almost. But like, you know, you see it with your own eyes, and they'll just kind of convince you that you're hallucinating or something. No, they they not only block these aid trucks, but then they told us that, oh, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is going to take care of all this, right? Like, you know, and they came up with multiple lies that actually, no, the aid that does get through, well, Hamas is stealing it. You know, just like, there's always a reason why somehow it doesn't get into the bellies of people. It's just, you know, and not to like, forget about the bombings, forget about the drone strikes, forget about the air strikes, forget about the white phosphorus, forget about all of that. Right? Forget about the total siege by land, air, and sea. Yeah, it's just, it's the trucks. It's Hamas, or Hamas, as they say. So they always came out with some bullshit argument. And now all of a sudden, those aid trucks can go in. So that confirms that you were blocking them. And it also confirms that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is an Israeli-American, it's one of the sickest things ever, that you would tell people to, instead of going to 400 United Nations aid distribution points, no, we're going to take away those 400 aid distribution sites and give you 4 instead of 400. And who is at these 4 sites? Oh, it's a bunch of US military contractors who are executing hungry people. They are luring, like a mousetrap, luring hungry Palestinians who have somehow not been killed by the bombs and the previous starvation, who are somehow, by some miracle, still alive, luring them to checkpoints where they shoot at them and execute them. The sickest Nazi shit you could possibly fucking come up with. That's the Gaza so-called Humanitarian Foundation. And so in the plan, they don't mention that is going to distribute the aid, because they bloody well know that it's incapable of doing that. It was never designed to do that. It's a death trap. They say the UN is going to distribute the aid. But lo and behold, some people who are with the UN are not being allowed in.
Because we were due to be leaving today to fly to Amman, and then we have seats on the convoy, the UN convoy, to enter Gaza on Sunday. And we were informed yesterday afternoon that all 3 of the surgeons travelling with Ideal's charity have been denied entry.
Lovely, right? So, again, what kind of ceasefire is this where the doctors aren't being allowed in, the UN, journalists, it's a sick joke, isn't it? It's a sick joke. And so I fear that as soon as the Israelis get their hostages back, their POWs, they're going to restart. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm not wrong about the fact that this map that I showed you does not end the occupation and it does not end the siege. It's right there. So you see here, it says third withdrawal dash security buffer zone. When they say security buffer zone, they mean a cage to box Palestinians in like animals, which is the entire fucking reason that all of this happened in the first place, because you're not allowing Palestinians to leave by land, air, and sea. You're not allowing them to have a state. You're not allowing them to have human rights. And it's not even up to Israelis to allow anything, like as if we need permission from them, for human rights. They're called human rights because you just qualify by being human. That's really the only criteria. You're a human being. Guess what? You've got all these rights, X, Y, Z, etc. Right? No one needs to don them upon you. Right? I mean, this is utterly insulting. So basically, they're gonna stay exactly where they are, if not worse, and take more land than before. Because you have to keep in mind that when it comes to Egypt, for example, the border here, the Israelis had the Egyptians imposing this part of the siege for them, right? But now the Israelis are going to go and do it directly themselves. So actually, the Israelis are basically stealing more land than before. They're basically tightening the siege on the Palestinians. So that's why I have a lot of difficulty taking this so-called ceasefire seriously. That's why because it's not a ceasefire. It's a temporary respite for people who deserve much more than just temporary respite. People who've been through hell. People who've been through absolute hell. This deal, this so-called ceasefire deal, does nothing to address any of the grievances that led to the Aqsa flood on October 7th. None. There is still an Israeli siege. There is still an Israeli blockade. You cannot leave by land, air, or sea. The Israelis still control whether doctors can get into Gaza, whether journalists can get into Gaza. There is no mention of, a Palestinian state or simply allowing Palestinians to self-govern. Instead, they want to bring in some colonial viceroy like Tony Blair or Donald Trump or John Doe to come in and rule over Palestinians, like as if they're not capable of self-governance. When ironically, Gaza had one of the highest rates of university graduates and academics per capita, right? So, I mean, the irony is astonishing. And they still won't treat Palestinians like human beings. They deny them their human rights. They abuse them, violate them, occupy them, besiege them. None of these grievances have been addressed. So even if you're a Zionist and you're trying to plan long-term for Israel's so-called security, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. But trust someone like Netanyahu and Jared Kushner and Donald Trump to give a crap about reason, right? This has always been the plan of Zionists. It's always been that way since Ben Gurion, right? Who they like to contrast to Netanyahu as being some kind of like rational, more down to earth left, like a liberal Zionist or whatever. No. Even since Ben Gurion, you can go read that letter he wrote to his son in 1937. He talks about how the whole game plan is to just take as much land as possible, right? It's to take as much land as possible. So I fear the second they get their hostages, their POWs back, the Israelis are going to resume the bombardment. They're going to resume the ethnic cleansing, just like we saw in January, right? Just like we saw in January with that ceasefire, and just like we saw the first time there was a week-long ceasefire with the first hostages being exchanged. This whole deal has no deadlines for the Israelis. Where are the deadlines? There's no deadline for when Israeli troops have to do any of this so-called withdrawal. It's not a withdrawal. They're literally staying inside of Gaza, just moving to different places inside of Gaza. There is no timeline for this. They've drawn these lines on a map, but even these lines, which are this occupation of Gaza, which is already insulting on its own, has no deadline. There is no timeline for any of this stuff. When do the Israelis move to the yellow line? When do they move to the green line? The red one, or this so-called security buffer zone? When do they move there? In 1,000 years? In 10 months? What is the timeline? There is none. There is none. The only timeline in this whole deal is, of course, imposed on the Palestinians. Give us the hostages in 72 hours or else. So we'll see in the next 72 hours what happens. I hope that I'm wrong on all counts. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think that this is going to ensure any sort of peace. I mean, it's absolute madness. There's also no mention of UN peacekeepers. You talk about bringing in some kind of security force, some vaguely defined security force. What does that mean? We saw when they talked about replacing the United Nations and bringing in the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, we saw what that was. That turned out to be a death trap. It turned out to be a death trap. Those US contractors were luring hungry Palestinians into death traps and executing them. Yes, it's actually that evil. It's actually that evil. It's probably more evil than what I'm describing to you. It's actually that evil. Not to mention that this so-called, this international force, this vaguely defined force, they don't even talk about who it's going to be. That we've heard whispers. It might have some troops from Qatar. It might have some troops from Egypt. But we know that they're sending 200 American troops, US troops right now to Gaza. And they say, there won't be any boots on the ground. Yeah, the last time they said that was when they built this bullshit pier where they ended up killing 200 Palestinians, more than 200 Palestinians in a so-called hostage rescue operation. It was basically a bloodbath to rescue a bunch of Israeli soldiers. That's what it was. So there was that pier, and then the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Every time they bring American troops into Gaza, it ends in a bloodbath. Do you understand? It's not me hypothesizing. I'm not speculating. These are facts. This is what happened in Gaza during this genocide in the last few years, in the same place with the same people. Okay? So why would it be any different the third time around? Why would it be any different the third time around? Not to mention what the Israelis have done for put the main imperial force aside, right? I'm just talking about like a few hundred American troops. Look what they've done. Never mind the Israelis. So there are no deadlines. And this idea that, you know, Hamas have agreed, and also another thing with the deadlines, there's no deadline for when Palestinian hostages get released. So how do you put a 72-hour deadline on handing over the Israeli POWs, but there's no deadline for when the Palestinians get handed over, of which there are, you know, scores and leagues more. You've got thousands of Palestinians in Israeli dungeons. You've got at least 1,500 in administrative detention alone. So in administrative detention is basically you've got no charge, no trial, not even allowed to know why you've been kidnapped. You're a hostage by definition. Where's the deadline for handing over those people? You know, again, this whole thing doesn't deal with any of these grievances at all. At all. It's a slap in the face. It's an insult. And this idea that Hamas are going to go and give up their weapons, I mean, they're taking the piss with this whole thing. It's really like just you see that the Israeli way of so-called negotiating is to add so many insulting things on a list that you just look at it and you go, what the fuck? That's they do that on purpose. So your only response is to walk away, and then they can sort of justify whatever colonial violence they inflict on you, like as if you know the two are comparable. What Hamas did this time, Hamas said, we agree to the ceasefire part, we're cool with that, and we'll discuss the other, we'll iron out and hash out the rest of the details afterwards. So, you know, you could chalk that up to being very good negotiation tactics and so on. I mean, frankly, I follow this for a living. It's no different from what they've been saying for 2 years. So I don't really feel that they pulled something particularly novel this time. They've been doing the same. They've been saying the same thing for 2 years. We'll give you all the hostages if you just piss off and pull out of the Gaza Strip. So anyway, that's being described as a very novel or smart way to have kind of, you know, go on a ceasefire, but and some aid in, and that's it. So what about the day after, right? Which is a term that they use. Basically, who's going to rule Gaza? What's going to happen? We'll watch this interview in a second and discuss that in more detail. But I just want to make something clear. You've got a generation of children. You've got a generation of Palestinian children in Gaza that have grown up now under genocide. And this might not even be the first Israeli onslaught. They might have been alive for 2014, Cast-led 2009. Literally, you lose count. You've got a whole generation of Palestinian children that are going to grow up, and they are going to bring forward the third wave of Palestinian resistance. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm a political analyst. I'm a journalist. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shit on me because you don't like the truth. It's not me who creates these conditions. I'm saying you haven't addressed any of the grievances that led to the Aqsa flood. You haven't addressed the siege. You haven't addressed the occupation, the statehood. None of it. The human rights. None of it has been addressed. As a matter of fact, it's even worse. This is making it even worse. So you've guaranteed that you get a third wave of Palestinian resistance. Now, whether that is an Islamist a wave like Hamas, Hezbollah, etc., or it's a secular Marxist wave like the PLO, or rather more specifically the PFLP, and so on, I don't know. I can't predict that far into the future. But you're going to get a third wave of resistance. And those children that have grown up under this genocide are going to make Hamas look like a bunch of altar boys. The next wave of Palestinian resistance will make Hamas look like altar boys, because they've grown up under this genocide. They've been subjected to far worse than whatever happened in the first and the second Intifada. This genocide makes the Intifada look like a joke, Okay, so you've guaranteed another October 7, another Al-Aqsa flood. That's guaranteed. It's not my doing. Don't shoot the messenger. That's your doing. The empire, the Israelis have guaranteed that. So this idea that, you're going to go ahead and disarm Hamas, I mean, even if you do that, you might convince the leadership to do that. You might convince the people in Turkey and Qatar to do that. You're not going to convince the men that are my age that have grown up under Israeli bombs in Gaza to do that. On the ground. You're not going to do that. It's not happening. It's just, it's common sense. It's common sense. It's not my opinion or, you know, what I want. I'm just telling you how it is. When you get a bunch of sleazebags in suits like this sitting around dictating, you know, like they shit roses or something about what's going to happen, you know, to people's futures, there's going to be blowback. And again, it's not my fault. I'm not condoning or condemning it. I'm telling it how it is. There's an action, there's a reaction. You can't have occupation without resistance. This peace plan does nothing to address any of the grievances. As a matter of fact, it makes them worse. So whatever we're seeing right now in Gaza is temporary. It's a short-lived respite, and my fear is that it's gonna get worse before it gets better. So I wanted to look at this. I wanted to look at this interview that happened on Sky News, I think yesterday or today. Give me a second to pull it up for you on the screen. It's with... Okay, you should be able to see that. Right. So Sky News decided after 2 years to go and interview Hamas. You know, they love to claim that they're objective and so on. So they went and interviewed earlier today Dr. Bassem Naim, who I've also interviewed in the past. He used to be the health minister for Palestine when Hamas was still under, you know, when they were still in the unity government, and then he became the head of the International Bureau, basically, for Hamas and so on. So I haven't seen the interview yet, but I wanted to watch it and kind of comment on it while we go through it together. So let's watch and see where we go from there.
Yes, I believe without the personal interference of President Trump, after giving Netanyahu the chances one after one to fulfill or to finish the job, and he failed at the end to finish the job according to his criteria, the so-called absolute victory, without the personal interference of President Trump. In this case, I don't think that it would happen to reach this end, the end of the war. Therefore, yes, we thank President Trump and his personal efforts to interfere and to pressure Israel to make an end of this massacre and slaughtering.
You have also called on President Trump to ensure that the Israeli government, Benjamin Netanyahu, sticks to its obligations. Do you trust that President Trump will do that and will continue the pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu?
Look, when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu, we don't trust him at all, and his government and his state. We have a long experience with undermining and sabotaging agreements with the Palestinians, not only with Hamas. I'm talking about decades of sabotaging agreements with the Palestinians and even with other countries, which has already signed with Israel the so-called normalization agreement. Therefore, yes, we believe and we hope that President Trump continue to interfere personally and to exercise the maximum pressure on Netanyahu to fulfill its obligation, first as according to the deal, and second according to the international law as an occupying power. Because I think without this pressure, without this personal interference from President Trump, this would not happen.
How will you ensure that the fighters, the Hamas fighters in...
So, I mean, my observation, again, I'm just giving you my thoughts the first time I watched this, but when you have to understand something about diplomats. They're kind of forced to talk out of both sides of their mouths, right? So he's thanking Trump, but he doesn't necessarily mean it, right? I think, honestly, I think behind closed doors, he'd probably be cussing Trump out, but, you know, that's what they're going to do during negotiations. It's just the form that you usually adopt is that you thank whoever's hosting or mediating the negotiations, even if you know that both the host and the other party are a bunch of war criminals. So, you know.
In Gaza will abide by this ceasefire as well and won't trigger, a breakdown of this ceasefire.
I have no doubt that they will stick to the deal and fulfill their obligations accordingly. I hope that the Israelis will do this.
Just to be clear, that the Trump plan does say that Hamas will have no role in governing the future of Gaza. So you can confirm then that your role as Hamas is over?
Look, Yalda, and I have to be honest with you and with your audience, and I have always been very open and frank in answering questions. Therefore, yes, we are ready to hand over the government. We are ready to be totally away from any government or governing body. But when it comes to Hamas as an entity, as a Palestinian liberation movement, I think no one can overcome or exclude Hamas. Hamas is also present in the West Bank. Hamas is present in Jerusalem, in the diaspora. Therefore, Hamas is not only the government in Gaza. And therefore, yes, we are ready to leave the government for a Palestinian body, but we are still there on the ground.
And what about disarming? Because you're talking about a political ideology, but there's also calls for Hamas to completely disarm itself. Is that something that Hamas is willing to do?
First of all, I have said all other points except the issues or topics related to the first phase, end of the war, withdrawal, prisoner exchange and aid. This is part of the second or third, I don't know how many phases, but this has to be discussed. And this question is belonging to these phases. And this has to be discussed with all other Palestinians about the future of our strategy to struggle for freedom and independence. Up to that point, first, no one can deny us the right to resist by all means, including armed resistance. We can offer any other modality like a hudna or a ceasefire for 5, 6, 7, 10 years where arms are stand still. We can think with other Palestinian resistance movement, with Arabic countries, with Islamic countries, how to guarantee a period of 5, 10 years, a time, space to found the Palestinian state. But what we have said many times,
so just to be clear,
our
though,
weapons
are
going to be handed over only to the hands of a Palestinian state. And our fighters can be integrated into the Palestinian National Army. Before that, no one has the right to deny us the right to resist the occupation by all means.
Now you're saying...
So he sounds, to me, my impression is that he's deflecting a lot, isn't he? I don't know if that's just him or if that's like how they're going to play this, like basically like the Israelis, like, yeah, we agree to the deal and then basically do whatever you want. I really don't know. But yeah. I need to watch what I say. So I'll play the rest of the interview.
You don't want to and you will not disarm.
If you ask it directly, yes, we are not going to be disarmed as long as we are not sure that this will lead by any other means to have an independent self-sovereign state which is able to defend itself. Second, there are other modalities. By the way, if the question, this question is again unfair question. This question has to be directed to the aggressor, to the criminal who committed the genocide, as you have done with the Nazis after the World War II. Therefore, it has.
Dr. Bassem, this is part of the deal, though. This is written very clearly as part of Donald Trump's 20-point plan.
We are not part of the whole deal. We are. We have. Again, we have accepted the first phase, which is including end of the war, prisoner exchange, withdrawal, and aid. The rest of the points is belonging to the whole Palestinian political.
Yeah, so Hamas for a long time, again, forget this current ceasefire, peace deal, whatever the hell it is. For months, really, like I got tired of it, and I cover this for a living. They were saying on multiple occasions, we will give up our weapons, we will not even govern Gaza, we'll give it over to a bunch of Palestinian technocrats. So technocrats meaning people that are, you know, they have the know-how on how to run the place day to day, on a day-to-day basis. They don't have a political affiliation or ideology behind that, but they can run the essential infrastructure and public services and these sorts of things, okay? So it's nothing new. So they've been saying that for a while, and of course the thing about the hostages, that we'll give you all of these Israeli hostages, dead and alive. They've been saying this for 2 years. They've been saying this for 2 years. I know the media act like some of this is new. It's really not. You can look this up yourselves. You can go and look this and find this on Google with the dates. These points have been brought up a million times. Trump did not come up with them. Okay, I need to be very clear about that. Trump and the Israelis didn't come out with these things.
Arena and all other factions, they have to discuss it together and to find ways how can we move forward by our struggle for freedom and independence. During this time, we can find a lot of modalities to have to lie our weapons down, to have a ceasefire 5-10 years, to have a truce, to have any way of controlling this portfolio. But again, this is a genuine right of Palestinian people, and no one can deny us. If this question has to be directed, it has to be directed to the aggressor, and he has to be disarmed. It's nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, which has been already used in the Gaza Strip and other areas during this war.
What about an interim political force made up of the likes of, and including the role of former British Prime Minister Tony Blair?
That's actually why I looked up this interview, because I saw this question being asked to him and I was really curious what he's going to answer. So let's see what he says.
Been discussions around that, and would you be open to welcoming them governing Gaza?
I mean, the goddamn nerve of asking that, you know, like, why don't we ask her if she's okay being ruled by, I don't know, Osama bin Laden or something? Are you open to that? What kind of fucking question is that? It's Tony Blair Palestinian? No. Does he have any connection to the Middle East besides killing Arabs? No. Why are you asking this question? Do you ask people if they want to be ruled by Mickey Mouse as well? What a bullshit question. I mean, are you open to it? Like, as if it's, I'm inviting you to a fucking coffee or something.
First of all, I am very sad every now and then to hear such proposal, because I am sure that Palestinians, after 100 years of struggling against the British mandate and the Israeli occupation, they are mature enough to rule themselves. But when it comes to Tony Blair, former Prime Minister, unfortunately, we Palestinians, and I'm sure Arabs and Muslims and maybe a lot of people around the world, they have very, very bad memories about him. We still remember his role in killing, on causing the killing of thousands or millions of innocent civilians in Afghanistan, in Iraq. We can remember very well, after destroying Afghanistan and Iraq, he became, as a reward for his crimes, to be the head of the quartet, which was imposing the siege on the PA first in 2003, and the quartet conditions, and then on the government formed by Hamas in 2006. I think all Palestinians, not only in Hamas, not only in Gaza, have very bad and very negative image of him. And I don't believe that he will be very welcomed or will be a very positive input in this case. Again, Palestinians have a lot of independent technocratic cadres or leaders who can do the job in the best interest of the Palestinian people. To be honest, when I hear the name Tony Blair, I can say this could be Balfour Declaration 2 after 100 years. We are reviving some very bad memories of UK and British mandate. Therefore, he can be the second Balfour in this case.
Dr. Bassem.
Yeah, thank you. I think those last couple of thoughts really sum this up. They're trying to propose and shove Tony Blair down the throats of the Palestinians like some colonial viceroy, like some, as you said, Balfour Declaration. I mean, this is madness and extraordinarily insulting.
I want to ask you about the strike in Qatar, which hit one of your officers and it missed the people in the room. You were in the room. Just talk me through that moment and how you realized that the strike had happened and the fact that you were...
How you realized the strike? What do you mean? The goddamn place blew up. I think that's how you realized the strike happened. Christ, I mean, she really sucks at asking questions. But I didn't know that actually he was in the same room. I had no idea that he was also targeted by that. That is wild.
Weren't in the room that you were expected to be in.
Alhamdulillah, we are still alive. We have a new chance to continue our struggle for our people to reach their goals of independence and self-sovereignty. If we were killed at that moment, I am sure we are not more precious than thousands of our children, women, and innocent people killed by the Israelis.
Yeah, I mean, they at least they covered the important parts. You know, I would have also liked to know what he thinks about Tony Blair, and I would not have asked it that way. Are you open to being ruled by some sea monster? You know the photo I'm referring to, where he looks like a sea monster. You know the one. Christ, I mean, very, very, very insulting, really. But you know, I think we'll leave it at that because I want to transition to something else. Something that I just can't get off my mind is whether this is going to be seen in the future as an Oslo 2.0. What do I mean by that? I mean, in the sense that Palestinians, or shall we say, Hamas, are sort of trading the international support that Palestine has accumulated and garnered in the last 2 years for a ceasefire. Now, obviously, it's a very difficult choice to make. I mean, you're seeing people being, torn to shreds every day. Any respite from that is the logical thing to do, of course. But when it comes to Oslo, and the Palestinians recognizing Israel, so this is back when Arafat was running things, and they formed the PA, and they basically said, we're going to forego armed resistance or armed struggle. We will make peace with Israel. And I mean, what was the result of that? They all that international solidarity that the Palestinians had accumulated went out the window. Took them decades to rebuild it, and they saw Israeli settlements double in the West Bank. Basically, the Israelis never stopped. Right? They got more and more violent and more extremist, and all of that was for nothing. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask whether this is the right move politically speaking, right? From a humanitarian point of view, of course it's the right move. Of course, you would choose life over bombs. No one is debating that, and we're not discussing that. But politically speaking, strategically speaking, long term, zooming out and looking at this as a struggle for national liberation. Right now, Palestine, forget Hamas, I'm talking Palestine in general, has more support than it's ever had in history, right? Anti-Zionism is at its highest levels anywhere, even in the US, even among their right-wing base. I mean, for the wrong reasons, because a lot of it is racist bollocks. We'll get into that separately. But generally speaking, worldwide, globally speaking, in 2025, anti-Zionism is at its highest. Pro-Palestine support is at its highest. The Israelis, honestly, if their goal is to kneecap or to cripple that support for the Palestinian cause, this is probably a good way to go about it. It's they might be relinquishing some of the land grabs that they wanted to execute right now, okay? And Daniela Weiss is probably ripping her hair out in misery. But, they're basically just going to still occupy Gaza. They will still control what goes into Gaza and who goes into Gaza. They will still have their claws sunk into Palestine. Nothing is changing on that front. On the contrary, they might even go and so-called do this so-called development plan where they basically just, come like a bunch of vultures, swoop in, and then build a Riviera on top of Gaza, steal the gas, steal the oil. I mean, who's going to stop them, right? There's a ceasefire, after all. We don't want war, right? So, and they'll market that as some kind of benevolent act. It's like you go and burn down a building and kill people and deprive them of their domicile and their family and everything, and then you come in and say, I'm going to rebuild the thing. Oh, and by the way, 25% of the investment is going to my bank account. I mean, it's insane, right? That Trump and Netanyahu and Kushner, I mean, it's so obvious what they're doing. If it wasn't already obvious with Trump and Netanyahu, you know when he's bringing in Kushner, it's all about property development. They're a bunch of sleazebags. So this might be a mistake. Not from a humanitarian perspective. I'm speaking politically. Like, look at this from a very cold, realpolitik point of view. Just look at it that way, in that lens. Is it wise to forego all of the international support that Palestine has right now? Especially when you're not getting anything in the deal. It's not like the deal actually has a deadline for Palestinian hostages to be returned. It doesn't. It's not like there's a deadline in it for aid to go into Gaza. There is none. It's not like Israelis are actually withdrawing from Gaza. They're not. The map shows that they will still be occupying and besieging Gaza. So it just makes no sense. It makes no sense. And with all that said, of course, the respite people are getting is priceless. You can't put a price on that. But the problem with the Israelis is that these are bad faith actors. The Americans are bad faith actors, right? I'm sorry to say that, but they are. So is the UK and all of the Western and European powers. They are bad faith actors. They cannot be trusted. I mean, literally, we just watched an interview where this guy's a diplomat. He's getting blown up during negotiations, right? Khalil al-Hayya, who was leading these negotiations, they almost tried to kill him. They almost killed him. They tried to kill him a few weeks ago. So, like, it's that level of bad faith negotiations where you try to murder the other party. You try to murder them during the talks, not even like, outside the talks. It's that level of dishonesty. It's unprecedented, frankly. It's I'm sure it's happened sometimes in history, but not with this level of firepower and in broad daylight in front of the world. It's never happened. Never. We are dealing with extraordinarily bad faith and dishonest actors who always go back on their word, who always lie and always cheat. So what are you getting from them that is so important and so immeasurably valuable that you have to forego all other avenues, and you're willing to throw away all of the momentum that you've built up for the Palestinian cause? This is the question that I and many others are asking. I'm not saying you're right or wrong to do that. I'm just asking if that's a wise thing to do. I'm posing it as an open question. And I think it's a very, very important question to ask. Because you may never, ever get this level of anti-Zionism again. You may not. I think the Israelis know that. I think they're very acutely aware of the fact that they are in big trouble. So they might be giving the appearance or of wanting peace and looking like that, they're going to let up and chill out. Well, if that's true, why are they buying TikTok right now, this week? Why are they doing that? Why are they investing gratuitous amounts of money and wealth into having Barry Weiss become the editor of CBS News and taking over TikTok? Why are they doing these things if they're long-term goal is peace. Why do they give a shit? Why are they spending so much effort to take back the narrative? It's because they're not done. That's the answer. That's the only logical answer. They are not done. As long as they're occupying and besieging Gaza, they're not done. So I think strategically speaking, politically speaking, from a very cold, calculated, removed point of view, this ceasefire is a mistake. And not from a humanitarian point of view, but just from a very brutally cold point of view. Long-term, strategically, I think only the Israelis are going to benefit from it. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But, you know, in 3 days, Hamas is supposed to give back the Israeli POWs and hostages. So we'll see what happens then. And, you know, the Israelis might not stop bombarding Gaza immediately. You know, you have to remember when it comes to this genocide, there were many episodes before of violence. Operation Cast-led and you know, 2014, 2009, etc. Many, and not to mention the decades-long occupation before that. So it just happens to be that this time they went and kind of vomited this giant dose of violence on Gaza. But it doesn't always have to be the case. You know, an occupation is long-term by definition. Especially a foreign military occupation like the one we're talking about here. The whole problem is that it's been made permanent. It's not supposed to be permanent under international law. You know, Geneva Convention outlines rules and regulations to make these things orderly and as humane as possible for the shortest amount of time possible. They're not a framework, so you just steal land like the Israelis use it. So only time will tell. But it might end up being a mistake. And not to mention, a lot of people died. You know, I'm not going to sit here and it's very easy for me to sit here in safety. Well, I mean, I'm being persecuted as well, but like, you know, relative safety to Gaza, right? And say, well, every revolution needs blood, right? Like, I don't know who said that exactly, but you hear this sometimes from revolutionaries that, you know, a revolution needs blood. Well, you could argue that a lot of people have died, and why are you throwing that away? You know, you've got tons of people in Gaza itself. You've got people in Lebanon who died for this cause. People in Yemen, people in Syria. Syria is gone. Syria's gone because it supported Palestine and no other fucking reason. I don't care what anyone says. That is the primary reason Syria's gone. Down the toilet. Under Al-Qaeda now because of that support. So Syria's been sacrificed. The whole goddamn place went down because of that. Not to mention... You like I said, the Palestinian themselves in Gaza, in the West Bank. I mean, and Iraq as well. We can talk about Iraq. So a lot of people died for this. Are you really sure that this is the right way to go about it? Are you really sure before you go ahead and appease these thugs in suits, these sleazebags like Donald Trump and his son-in-law and Netanyahu, these gangsters, these liars, these cheats, these thieves? Are you sure you want to throw all that blood away? I think it's a very important question to ask. So I want to talk about this interview that I mean, it's just a clip I found. I'm not going to watch the whole thing because it's already bad enough listening to two Zionists at once. But I found this clip of Piers Morgan and Daniela Weiss, who is like the queen settler. I mean, that's already far too generous of a title. But anyway, let's watch it and kind of analyze and dissect what they're talking about.
You say the Palestinians don't exist.
I didn't get your comment.
Your position is that the Palestinians don't exist. So what are they?
It's an invention. It's an invention that is not as secondary to the important fact that the Jewish nation, that the land of Israel belongs only to one nation, and this is the Jewish nation. The Palestinians are Arabs who try to compete with the big success of the Jews in the land of Israel. And actually...
Oh, there's so much bollocks to unpack. Okay, a couple of things. So in the Bible, when you talk about, you know, a nation of Israel, it's not meant as a literal sense, in the literal sense. Okay, it's meant figuratively. Okay, it's not supposed to be a nation state for Ashkenazi Jews in the Levant. That's not what it means. Okay, and also she says the Arabs like as if they're a separate group. You always hear this framing like it's Arabs versus Jews. That's not how it works. That is very stupid framing. This woman, Daniela Weiss, you can tell from her name, she's not from this region. I mean, Weiss is the color white in German. She is, I think, her mother's Polish and her dad's American, or the other way around. She's a Polish American. Okay, so she's a double colonizer who has come to Palestine, and she's been leading the charge for many decades of all these illegal settlements to build and so on. So just to go back to this point where she's saying the Arabs, like as if they are like some external group. Ironically, she is from the external group. Netanyahu, Golda Meir, every single Israeli prime minister, they're all Europeans. They all come from the Soviet Union, from Poland, Ukraine, Hungary, Russia itself, etc. Really, they were either born there themselves, or their parents were born there, or their grandparents. Right? I mean, it's not about where they were born. The point is that just by their family tree, they come from Eastern Europe. They're Ashkenazis. They're converts. They're people who converted to Judaism, a bunch of centuries ago. I don't know how long. I don't know their personal family histories, but they are Ashkenazi Jews. Ironically, you take any Palestinian off of the street, any Lebanese person, any Syrian person, and you look at their DNA, you will find that they have closer DNA to Moses, to the ancient Hebrews, the ancient Israelites that Daniela Weiss and Netanyahu claim to be a part of, than Netanyahu and Daniela Weiss and all these people, and Smotrich and so on. I mean, Ben Gvir is an exception because he's an Iraqi Jew, so he probably does have some DNA in common. But again, he's like the only prominent Arab Jew that's ever been allowed a position of power, and it's only because Netanyahu needed a coalition. Anyway, so my point is that the irony of all this is that Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, like people from the Levant, from this area, the Arabs, as she calls them, are more Jewish, quote unquote, than she is. She's a convert. She's not related to the actual Jews that lived there 3,000 years ago. Do you understand the point here? And I mean, there are several names throughout history. At one point, Canaanites, and then Hebrews, and then Israelites, and Levantines, and Syrians, Palestinians. The name is irrelevant. And Arabs is another one. The name is bloody irrelevant. When we say Arabs, it doesn't mean that every single person in Palestine and Syria and so on came from the peninsula. It means that they are Levantines, but they are Arabized. They speak Arabic, right? They adopted Arabic as their mother tongue. The people in that region moved on with time, naturally, throughout the course of history. They moved on from Judaism to Christianity, and then some of them stayed Christian, some of them stayed Jewish, and the bulk of them, the majority, moved on to Islam. But it's the same people. They didn't just, evaporate into the sky. And the same thing with the language. They moved on from Aramaic and Hebrew to Arabic. Arabic is just as Semitic as Hebrew and Aramaic. It's literally a Semitic language. It's a cousin. I mean, the stuff that Israelis speak today is nothing to do with the original Hebrew. It's modern Hebrew. It's a cocktail of Yiddish and Arabic and liturgical Hebrew. So, like, I think they'd have trouble if you sent her back in time 2,000 years ago. God help people back then. But if you did, I think they would have trouble understanding what the hell she is talking about in her so-called Hebrew, because it's not original Hebrew. It's a fake, artificial, synthetic cocktail of Hebrew. And the reason for that is because even like the rabbis would not speak Hebrew at home. No one spoke Hebrew at home. You would only use that in prayer. It's like Latin, and even Latin, I don't know how that became. It should be Aramaic, really, right? Christianity doesn't come from Rome. But just to give you an analogy, it's like if you're a Christian and then you're supposed to speak Latin at home. It's utterly ridiculous. So the irony about everything she's saying is that she is the pretender. She is the poser, the one LARPing as a Semite. She has no connection to this land. She is like a crusader who comes from Venice or from England or France in the Middle Ages, and then pretends to be the owner of Jerusalem and declares it a crusader state which they did. That's another similar colonial European project, right? They had these 6 Crusader states in Antioch and so on. It's exact same unhinged behavior. She's a European religious fanatic pretending to be from a region that she's not from. It's that simple.
Actually, the word Palestine was used by Adrian, the Roman emperor. But the modern Palestinians are Arabs who want the same place that the Jews made a
The modern Palestinians are the Jews. Okay, is that clear? I mean, she is unhinged, like completely unhinged. I don't know like how else to put this for her, but you know, me personally, I couldn't care less what someone's religion is, where they come from, what their family name is. I really don't give a shit. But one of the main pillars of Israeli mythology and their whole mystique, right, quote unquote, behind, because every nation has its own story, right? You need to cook one up if you don't have one, and that's what the Israelis did. They cooked up this story about how the land is theirs. No, ironically, this is the land of the Palestinians, right? The people you call Arabs, the people who are majority Muslim now, most of them, and by the way, you still have some Christians and some Jews. It's their land. It's not your land. You're an Eastern European American woman. That's it.
Paradise of, they want to take it from us. And
yeah, she's convinced. So, I mean, we go back to this trend with Israelis where every accusation is a confession. Just take what they're saying, what comes out of their mouth, flip it, and then you get the truth.
But actually what's happening is you want to take their land, isn't it?
Okay, so you make your position, I make mine, and the world will judge. And I mean, it's interesting that when there are historical facts that can be proven, and then you cling to what? I really don't understand what history you represent.
Well, just taking Ms. Weiss, taking your argument to its logical extension, then you believe that Israelis and Jewish people should be entitled to all of the West Bank and all of Gaza. If it's your land, as you say...
Not just all of the West Bank. It's not bank. Bank is a narrow place.
Okay.
It's the major part of the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean.
So you would like, just to be clear, you would like all of the land from the river to the sea to be Israeli Jewish, yeah?
No, I want all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile. What do you mean?
I like an honest thief, I have to admit. Honesty among thieves is rather rare. What do you mean? Oh, shit, man. That's the most I've ever laughed at anything she said. I appreciate the honesty for once. I really do. She's funny, isn't she? She's really funny. What she's talking about is the Greater Israel Project. She's talking about Greater Israel, and it's really funny because I've been talking about how Israelis want a Greater Israel for years. You know this. Like, those of you who've been subscribed, you know I've been talking about this for bloody years. You go back on the channel, you'll find it. And this is only something people have now caught up onto, like in the last year. You know, like most people actually with Palestine, they didn't know shit about anything to do with Palestine. And they've only been catching up in the last year. This has been something the Israelis have had in mind for a long bloody time. They want, you know, Syria, they want Lebanon, they want even going all the way to Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt. They think this belongs to them. And you know, I think the Arabs made a mistake, right? The Arabs mistake when the Zionists came and said, the European Zionists, right? They said, we want to build a nation here for Jews. The Arabs' response should have been, okay, but with DNA tests. I don't think the Zionist project would have lasted very long after that, because the Israelis banned DNA tests. The only way you can get a DNA test in Israel is if a court orders it, like I guess for a maternity or a paternity test or something like that, right? Like in very finite circumstances. But you can't just order one online and take it like you can in most countries. Why do you think that is? It's because people like her, the bulk of Israelis, Ashkenazis, would very quickly find out that their whole, you know, myth and mystique is a bunch of bollocks. That's why they're banned in Israel, right? Like, what a peculiar thing to ban out of all the things that exist. Why would you ban DNA tests? Like, who does that, right? Well, the Israelis do, because of this reason. So the Arabs' mistake is they should have said, yes, we accept Zionism with DNA tests, and then basically nothing would have changed, and they would have had to go back to Eastern Europe.
Why hide the
I'm just curious what
the history?
I'm curious what you intend to do with all the Palestinians who currently live there.
Those, you see, I trust, in God I trust. And I...
it's so funny she says that. Reminds me of not only the dollar bill, but what the Nazis had on their belt buckles, right? Although it's slightly similar.
Live by faith, by emunah, and by the Bible.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with all the millions of Palestinians? What happens?
I'm telling you, Joshua, the first settlers, he gave me
I don't need a history lesson. I'm just asking you, what do you intend to do with the millions of Palestinians who currently live in Gaza and the West Bank?
Exactly what Joshua did.
What are you going to do with them?
That's exactly what he had. When Joshua came with us from Egypt, he had to cope with 7 peoples who lived here. Why God chose to bring us from Egypt to such a complicated place and not to Canada, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that Joshua...
Yeah, lady, you're literally from North America. You are from North America. You're an American. She is an American woman. She's Polish-American. I think it was a Freudian slip on her part. But anyway, I'll let her finish.
I said, those who accept our sovereignty, our government, will stay. Those who fight, will fight them. And those who do not accept our sovereignty, our government, they will go to other places. There is a clear formula. So I do not have to
Well, there is a
invent.
clear formula. It's actually
by the Bible.
Yeah, but again, to be clear, your clear formula, there's a legal term for it. It's called ethnic cleansing. What you're saying is if Palestinian people do not subscribe to the fact they should be ruled by Israel and have you as their sovereign state, then they have to leave, right? So 6-7 million Palestinians...
They're so unhinged. I mean, you might be watching this and thinking Piers Morgan, wow, he looks rational and he's doing his job. Let me tell you something about Piers Morgan, okay? He blocked me because he's a coward, okay? And if he had any balls and a spine, he would have had me on. But I don't care, honestly, about him in particular, but he has been one of the biggest vectors through which the Israelis have spread their propaganda. He pushed this beheaded babies bollocks and, the babies in ovens and the rapes. He was one of the main vectors where he pushed that stuff. That's my biggest issue with him. So you have to understand that there's, like, usually in the way that interviews are done in the British style of journalism is like this. So I give him credit where credit is due. In this case, he's doing a great job, and you're supposed to just take the adversarial position and argue from an adversarial position, no matter who you're interviewing, even if it's someone you agree with, right? That's the British style of journalism. The problem is that they only do it, or they do it most of the time, like 90% of the time, with people that they disagree with. So when it does come to Zionists, they are not going to adopt that adversarial style. That's my gripe. And Piers Morgan has only been doing that, like, here and there, on and off, recently, because he sees the way the wind is blowing. He sees that most people are now against this the idea of not just Greater Israel, but Zionism in general. They have become more pro-Palestine and militant in support of Palestine. So he is trying to adjust to the times. It's not because he's had some kind of change of heart or because he woke up and saw the light. He's looking out for his own career. He's looking out for his own interests. He doesn't give a shit about being impartial or objective as a journalist or getting at the truth or getting to the root of the issue. He doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about Palestinians being torn to shreds. He only cares about being relevant. And so he does these things so that people like me then go and, give him some relevancy by showing his clips, right? That's the only reason. And many on the American right, just like him, never give a shit about Palestinians, They didn't give a crap about Arabs. As a matter of fact, they, like Piers Morgan, they helped with a lot of this Islamophobia and anti-Arab racism for years, right? And now they pretend to care about Palestine and challenging Israel. Complete frauds. Complete frauds. And you know who I'm talking about.
Would have to leave and go and live elsewhere. That's your position.
Yeah, so I mean, no matter how no matter which way you look at it or how you slice it, this woman is wrong. Even if you accept Zionism, like let's say you are that unhinged, even like to play devil's advocate, okay? She is not related to the original Jews that lived in this area. She just isn't. She's a European who converted to Judaism at some point and thinks that she is owed land thousands of kilometers away. She is deranged. She is no different from a crusader galloping off on a fucking horse in the Middle Ages to Jerusalem. She is the exact same level of unhinged European. She's a Zio Karen. That's what she is and who she is. And you can say the same thing about people who go and fight in ISIS, you know, someone from Indonesia or from Afghanistan or Tunisia who thinks that they are owed a piece of land in Syria because they happen to be a Muslim. This is unhinged, just madness. Completely mad. They are religious fanatics. They should not be taken seriously one bit. The only reason I played this clip is because I wanted to dissect this whole thing about like, this land belonged to us. No, it never belonged to you. You're not even from this region. You have no biological or geographical connection to this region. I mean, Jesus, you don't even have a religious connection. You know, your version of Judaism is perverted. It's completely Talmudic. I mean, the 10 Commandments tell you not to kill, and all you do is kill people literally every day. So, this idea that you are religious or religiously or geographically connected is complete utter bollocks. That's why I wanted to show you this clip. She is just one of the most deranged fanatics and advocates of this myth, but all Israelis really believe in it or buy it somehow, even those that call themselves atheists or secular, which I mean makes no sense to me. Like, you anyway, you get the idea. So I wanted to look at this. Sorry, I completely forgot to read any of your messages. Forgive me. I'll go through them and then we'll continue with the rest of the. We've got Live 42 who joined on Patreon. Thank you very much, and also Donna. And we've also got a couple of donations on PayPal. This one is from Maria. I don't see a note attached, but thank you very much, Maria. And I owe you guys a crab dance. I'll play that and then we'll continue with the program. Guys, show Live 42 and Donna some love and spam the chat with crabs. Thank you very much.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you. والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Oh!
Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway. We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Why you text Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you!
So guys, thank you very much for your support. And again, the YouTube channel is still demonetized. So I'm grateful for all of your support. Thank you for supporting independent journalism. I'm just getting the next segment ready for you. And this one is about IDF multinational, right? I mean, again, many of them are dual citizens, and many more qualify for dual citizenship. But these people are basically what some call jihadists, where they're basically Jewish jihadists. They literally go take part in the genocide as as jihadi religious holy war tourism. This is really what it is. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because this story, in my opinion, was a bit underreported in the media. Mainstream media did talk about it, but it was, they kind of spat it out and then let it go, and So let's take a look at this this story. Give me a second to pull it up on the screen. Yeah, you should be able to see that. There we go. Okay, so this was published as a joint investigation by The Guardian, Der Spiegel, and others a few weeks ago. And it's about snipers that are dual Israeli nationals who basically went to Gaza or go to Gaza and just slaughter Palestinians. The title of the article is "The Gaza Family Torn Apart by IDF Snipers from Chicago and Munich." Okay, so I think that really says it all. But what makes this investigation so peculiar is that one of the journalists pretended to be an Israeli doing a documentary and gained the trust and confidence of one of these snipers and got them to admit on tape about to their war crimes. And what's really striking is how brazen and callous they are about it. Now, the whole interview, and again, I should shout out Yunus for his spectacular reporting on this matter. But and he posted the whole interview. It's quite long. It's about 40 minutes. But I'm just going to play you a short clip from it. And you can see here this photo of the ghost unit. So this unit is the specific unit in question. And you can see how many of these are dual nationals. I mean, again, the Israelis, by definition, are colonizers, right? They have settlements because they are settler colonizers. They're not from this land. So they have come, or their parents or their grandparents have come from other parts of the world to take this land by force. You have people in this unit from Italy, from France, from Belgium, from the United States, from Germany, South Africa, and so on. And this is one of the men in question. His name is Daniel. It's a very, very German name, by the way, Daniel Raab. So when I saw the name, I thought he's a kraut. He might be, maybe his parents or something, but he's also he's an American Israeli at the very least. And just look how brazen he is. This is the guy I was talking about who did the interview.
מה שנקרא מערב ברצלונה, שזה היה פארק, מין פארק כזה שידענו שיש כאילו מטענים ועניינים שחיכו לנו, ושהיה גם הייתה מנהרה צמודה לפארק איפשהו, לא ידענו איפה. אז ידענו שאוקיי, אנחנו כובשים את האזור, נגלה איפה המנהרה וייצאו את המחבלים ינסו לברוח. אז נכנסתי לעמדה ודווקא היה כאילו הוא ניסה לגרור את הגופה של המחבל הקודם שהוא חוסל. נתתי לו להתקרב, הוא לא ידע שכמובן שאני לא הבנתי מה הוא עושה, הוא ראה חבר שלו עומד. אתה לא ידע שיעשו לו אותו דבר? אני לא יודע אם מישהו שלח אותו, קשה לי להבין למה הוא גם לא כזה מעניין אותי. הוא בא לגרור, אולי היה עליו מודיעין, אולי הוא היה בכיר, כאילו מה היה כל כך חשוב מהגופה הזאת, אבל בא לגרור אותו, התכופף בתפוס אותו ונתתי כדור אחד, פגעתי בו בראש.
So just to give you context in case that wasn't clear, if you read the full article on The Guardian or you watch the full interview, what he's talking about really is basically he shot a 19-year-old, okay? A 19-year-old, so a teenager in Gaza called Salem. And then he shot his brother who was trying to retrieve the body, okay? So he shot a teenager in Gaza, then he shot the teenager's brother because he was trying to get his body. And then he also shoots their father. So the father gets word that both of his sons have been shot by a sniper. He tries to go and retrieve the bodies, and he also gets shot. I mean, and you saw what he says in the interview, like, I don't understand why. Like, what do you mean? I mean, every culture in history has some form of ritual or ceremony to respect their dead. I mean, you know, it almost sounds demonic the way he puts it. Like, I don't understand why they wanted the body. What do you mean? Like, literally, everyone in any part of the world buries their dead. I don't know what is so bizarre about this to him, why it's unclear to him. It kind of goes to show how disconnected, detached, sociopathic, whatever, you know, adjective you want to pick, I don't care, the guy is, right? And again, this is a dual American-Israeli citizen from Chicago, and you know, he's not the only one in this investigation. They also went and caught, you know, another one in this ghost unit. So what's his name? So also Daniel, but Gretz, okay? And someone in Germany, a legal group, filed a war crimes complaint against this Daniel Gretz, and he fled the country, basically, and the Germans sort of allowed him to just flee, because I can't imagine. I mean, when you file a war crimes complaint, it's not something to be taken lightly. But they basically, he buggered off, right? So again, it's not the same guy I'm showing you in this clip. I'm not talking about him. It's another Daniel, but also in the same sniper unit in Gaza, in this part of the same investigation. So basically, he just like fled Germany once this investigation came out, once the war crimes complaint was filed, and buggered off to I don't know, Tel Aviv or something. Who knows? So, you know, it's. I mean, it goes straight. They know they've done something wrong. Not only that, but the investigation. They have the footage. They've seen. And you can watch the footage of these snipings. So it's not like there's any doubt. They're admitting to it on camera. They provided the footage. And they only did this because they thought it's going to be a documentary glorifying Israeli war crimes. Like, it really goes to show you how sick this society is. Here you can see Haaretz reporting a criminal complaint filed in Germany against Munich-born IDF sniper. Right? And then he, like I said, he left. And this is also according to Eunice, who helped co-write this whole investigation. Okay, so yeah, it's astonishing, really, and I'm trying to draw several points to your attention with this. It's not only the great journalism and that's been done, but also the fact that you see how Israelis really are a society of colonizers. The fact that so many of them are dual nationals is not an accident. You know, they qualify for these nationalities because they come from those places. All right, and many of them could qualify through their parents or themselves or their grandparents and so on. Okay, it is a society of colonizers that do not come from this region. Not only that, but it's a very sick society. It's a very cold, heartless society where, you know, he thinks that executing a teenager and then his brother and then his father is you know, something to be proud of, or some kind of like military, you know, some heroic act in battle. I mean, it's probably one of the most cowardly things you could think of, really. And he doesn't even know why he's killed them. The reason that the so-called reason or pretext that they give for this is that they set up an imaginary perimeter that if anyone crosses this imaginary line that they have come up with on the spot and the Palestinians do not know about or know of, which is lovely, right? Like how humane of them, how professional of them. So they just make up an imaginary line that is invisible, that is only known to them, and then shoot anyone who crosses it. I mean, this is, you know, wanton violence. Just wanton violence. There's no other way to describe it. These people are serial killers, and in the article they admit to killing hundreds of people. That is their body count. Hundreds. So they really are, by definition, sociopathic serial killers on the fucking loose. That is the only way I can describe these people. And this is one unit. This is one unit among many. Do not think for 1 second this is a special, you know, like an especially deranged unit of the IDF, and all of them, the rest of them, they're completely, you know, sound human beings and the most moral army in the world, as they like to call themselves. No. This is just a very good piece of journalism. The shocking thing about the IDF, and again, put this investigation and this unit aside, is that they post their own war crimes. I mean, a lot of them will go on TikTok, on Instagram, and post their own war crimes, you know, whether it's stealing women's lingerie, ruffling through people's, private property, which is a war crime. It's basically looting, or whether it's shooting at people, blowing buildings up, mosques, schools, universities. All of these are war crimes, clear cut. No threat, nothing, no one in the building, just blowing it up, destroying civilian infrastructure, war crime. Black and white, extremely clear cut. Dozens, hundreds of these cases, they posted themselves. It's not like they're even trying to conceal this stuff. It's really a breathtaking phenomenon. I mean that in a very bad way. We've never seen anything quite like this. I know that in previous wars, not every soldier had a cell phone or social media, and I'm pretty sure that if we had maybe a larger timeline, you might have seen the same behavior in other theaters of war. But I don't think it would have been this extensive. I don't think you would have seen that many videos or war crimes posted as sort of trophies or portrayed as some kind of valiant act of bravery or some military feat. No. These are just scum. I mean, really, it's kind of the only way to put it. They're serial killers on the loose. And what's astonishing is that, I get arrested going back to my own country because of my journalism, because I'm sitting in a fucking room with 4 walls by myself talking to a camera. That's terrorism. But this is not terrorism. Apparently sniping human beings with actual guns, civilians that pose no threat to you, and then murdering them for trying to retrieve bodies, their loved ones, their deceased loved ones, which is an additional war crime, by the way. You have, even under the IDF's own rules, you cannot shoot people retrieving bodies. It's again, a clear-cut war crime. Every army in the world has a rule against this. Apparently that's not terrorism. These scumbags go back to the US, they go back to the UK, they go back to Germany, they walk in the streets amongst us. Serial killers, sociopaths on the loose, and this is not terrorism, apparently. Their behavior is not criminal. I mean, the goddamn planet is upside down. Upside down. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, again, that's the ghost unit in question, all right? So I'm just trying to check if there's any updates on Gaza in this second phase. I mean, it's still the first phase until they get these hostages out. Although, again, I think it's absurd that there's no deadline for the Israelis to release the thousands of Palestinians that they have. Also, you should know that the violence in the West Bank, the Israeli colonial violence in the West Bank, is still ongoing. They're still killing people. They're still burning crops, stealing homes. These settler attacks. Again, when we say settler attacks, you have to remember all settlers, all Israelis have to join the military. So it's really like off-duty IDF attacks. I think it's a better way to put it. They're off-duty Israeli troops. It's really the only way to put it. Now, They like to call every Palestinian a terrorist. Like, just by virtue of existing, you are affiliated to X, Y, and Z and therefore deserve to die. But again, it's one of those projections they do where it's actually their whole society, including the women, who are all trained killers, who all have conscription, obligatory military service, 2 years, and then until they're 40 as reservists. I mean, by their own standards, the entire Israeli society is guilty by their own standards, right? By their own logic, their logic, Israeli logic. So they're still butchering the West Bank. Again, like nothing has changed with this so-called deal. So the White House posted this, where they said 2 years, they posted it like 3 days ago, right? So 2 years, never forget. And they're talking about October 7th, right? And someone quote tweeted this and said, wow, my Nazi child was popping Molly and twerking beside a concentration camp. Someone feel bad. There is the whole question of legality. Like, if we want to talk about international law, and I don't know why we even should at this point, given how disrespectful and contemptuous the Israelis and the West have been towards it. But like, let's try and us maintain some civility. Under international law, it's true that if you're off duty, you're off limits, right? Like if you leave the base and your shift is over as a soldier, yeah, technically speaking, it's illegal to harm you, kidnap you. You can't be captured in battle, so to speak, and so on. Again, whether you think that the Israelis deserve any sort of, whether they can talk about international law, no, of course they can't. But the thing is that we go back to this thing that the Israelis do, where they accuse the entire Palestinian society of being complicit and they deserve to die, including the babies, because so what do they say? They say, oh yeah, the men are terrorists, the women are terrorists, and the babies will grow up to be terrorists. Like literally, I was watching a Guardian series like literally 2 days ago, and the Israelis just spout this bollocks again. Almost every Israeli will tell you that. So again, where does that leave you when you're off-duty people and those that have so-called finished, supposedly finished their service are really just reservists in the IDF? I mean, you have no moral high ground. You have nothing to stand on if that's your logic. Literally none. The Israelis like to formulate this as being some kind of peace festival, like, oh, well, the Nova thing was just a bunch of peaceful Israelis. Those communities are the ones that love the Palestinians the most, and they were just, it was just a music festival, and they're trying to make it so innocent. Look, mate, if you're dancing outside of a concentration camp, you're still fucking dancing outside of a concentration. People in Palestine, like again, forget Hamas, right? Because they want to make it about Hamas. I'm talking about the whole strip, the whole Gaza Strip is besieged. You know what that means, besieged? It means you're boxed in, you're caged in. Even concrete, they wouldn't allow in to Gaza. This is before October 7th. That's before the Aqsa flood. They wouldn't allow concrete in because it's dual use. Right? This is some deranged U.S. State Department Treasury term for basically we want to ruin your life, and by claiming that basic necessities can be used for something potentially evil. You might make explosives with the toothpaste. So sorry, you can't brush your teeth. You might build a quote unquote terror tunnel with the concrete. So sorry, you can't rebuild your house. This is the kind of deranged crap that they were imposing on Palestinians. So. And this idea that those were the most peaceful and Palestinian-loving communities is complete bullshit. The communities, the settlements, that's what they are. They're colonial settlements. They're stolen bits of land that were placed around Gaza, were placed there as a perimeter, as a military perimeter. These are actually the most heavily armed Israeli settlements in general. Why? Because the idea was that if the natives start getting restless, right, you run to that armory over there, you grab a gun and you put that rebellion down. That's the whole point. They had easy access to armories. These so-called peace-loving, molly-popping hippies, right? Right? They're not hippies. They're IDF reservists. Now, again, under international law, yeah, I will absolutely concede it's illegal to touch off-duty troops. Sure. But Israel doesn't give a shit about international law. So, you can't demand civility from people and legality and that they abide by international law when you literally shit on it more than anyone else. This is just, you're taking the mickey here. So the Israelis put these settlements around Gaza on purpose to act as a buffer zone, not because they are under threat. No, because they want to besiege and box the Palestinians in. They are the most militarized. They are the most heavily militarized Israeli settlements. Okay, and that's their entire purpose. Even Daniela Weiss, who we were talking about earlier, you look at the way that she planned settlements, not on Gaza, but in the West Bank, but this applies to Gaza too. She's been leading the charge to put settlements in Gaza. She openly says on camera that the whole way she put those settlements on the map was to prevent a Palestinian state. Do you really think that she is an exception and that she and her colleagues, her co-conspirators, didn't do the same thing with Gaza? Again, these are not, the things we're hypothesizing about. Those settlements really were there as a military perimeter. That's the only purpose. It's the same thing as the British, Dutch, Spanish settlers in the Americas 200 years ago, building these forts to keep the natives out of their own bloody land, and to massacre them. It's the same thing, the exact same thing. It's just a modern, upgraded iteration of that. That's all. Don't get it twisted. Don't think of it as anything different. There's something else I wanted to talk about, and I can't remember what it is now. Oh yeah, the Nobel Peace Prize, right. So they just gave this Nobel Peace Prize to basically a knockoff female version of Juan Guaido, right? Who was put forward as this kind of like alternative to Maduro in Venezuela. Now let me be very clear. Maduro is the legitimate leader of Venezuela. You don't like it? Tough luck. So was Gaddafi in Libya, and so was Assad in Syria. Tough shit. You don't like it? I don't care. The CIA, the State Department, the Americans, they have their Monroe Doctrine, where they think that the Western Hemisphere is their purview and that they can boss people around and do whatever they like. What they really care about is Venezuela's oil, right? I've been reporting on this for years, but now they've come out and given this Nobel Peace Prize to this charlatan, this female knockoff version of Juan Guaido, who himself was really just a massive failure. Not only is she a proponent of regime change that directly benefits American corporations to steal Venezuela's oil. Remember, Venezuela has the largest reserves on the planet. Not only that, but she herself is a Zionist. She even wrote a letter to Netanyahu a couple of years ago asking him to help with regime change in Venezuela. So the idea that this woman, who is a proponent of imperialism, right, who's spearheading an imperialist initiative in the Southern American continent, is insulting, really. I mean, it's like giving it to Kissinger or Obama. It's extremely, extraordinarily insulting, and I think it completely robs the prize of any meaning. I mean, I think one problem is that phonetically and also linguistically, people hear the word Nobel Peace Prize and they think it actually means like it's a noble person. It's not spelled the same way, and it comes from the guy's surname who created the prize. Okay, it's Nobel. So I think that's part of the issue here, is that people think that it's really, anyone who gets it is actually really deserving of it, and so on. It is a prestigious prize. It does have, value. Most people consider it, or not just in peace, but in literature and so on, physics, etc., to have value. So yeah, it does matter when you give it to imperialist swine like that. And it does matter when you give it to war criminals like Kissinger and Obama. And the idea that Trump was going to get it, and that he did this whole thing in Gaza, this so-called peace deal to get it. I mean, you're really choosing between one neocon war criminal and another. I mean, at the end of the day, a bunch of neoconservatives got the prize. That's what happened. They, instead of giving it to one mass murderer in Gaza, meaning Donald Trump, they just gave it to another potential or proponent of mass murder in Venezuela. Right? It's still a neoconservative who got it in the end. Now, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a bit biased because both of my parents got the Nobel Peace Prize because they served as UN peacekeepers. And that brings me to my next point. Why couldn't they have given the Nobel Peace Prize this year, of all years, to the doctors in Gaza, to the journalists in Gaza, who deserve it more than anyone on this planet? Really, I mean, hundreds of our colleagues got massacred in Gaza doing their jobs, and their families too, right? They were targeted in assassinations, journalists, for doing their jobs. That would have been such an amazing way to redeem the prize of its name. Or rather, redeem the prize itself and kind of have it live up to its name and make it worth something again. The whole planet would have been over the moon if you'd given it to doctors in Gaza or journalists in Gaza. And I bring up my parents because that was given to UN peacekeepers collectively. So it's been done in the past. You can give it collectively. It doesn't have to go to one person. So, it's I don't know. It's completely a lost cause at this point. It's a lost cause, I think, unfortunately. Also, it was given, for example, to the IAEA. I know to say in 2025, it wasn't given in 2025. Forget the Iran nuclear deal. I think it was given a few decades ago. I just know because when you walk in the UN building in Vienna, they have it on display. But my point with that is they give it to organizations. Sometimes they give it to bodies, NGOs, or a collective group. You don't have to give it to one person. They sometimes give it to, for example, it's shared by as a joint prize between 2 or 3 people. So you could have absolutely given it to the doctors of Gaza. You could have absolutely dedicated it to the journalists there. You could have dedicated to foreign doctors even who went to Gaza, whatever. You could have picked something else. You don't have to give it to one imperialist or another imperialist. I think that's just insulting people's intelligence. And you're really shooting yourself in the foot, because at one point or another, people are just going to realize that the prize is worthless, or that it's void of all meaning. So again, I'm a bit biased because my parents have it, and they risked their lives in UN peacekeeping in Angola, Lebanon, Kashmir, etc. So and UN peacekeepers deserve it, right? That's something similar to where you're a doctor in a war zone or a journalist in a war zone. But again, they go and give it to people like Kissinger or Obama, and it makes you want to vomit. It makes you want to puke. And remember, Obama got it, I think, in the first couple of months or the first year of his first term, so he hadn't even done anything. Like, he literally, the first day he sat down in office, he just expanded the NSA surveillance that Bush put in place with the presidential surveillance program, turned it into PRISM and so on, and expanded the drone program. I mean, like, neoconservative to the core. And it really has just been a continuation of Reagan ever since, right? Everyone after Reagan has been another iteration of Reagan, including Trump, including Biden, and so on. So none of those vultures deserve a peace prize of any kind, of any caliber, frankly. And get your filthy hands off of Venezuela. Get your filthy imperialist hands off of Venezuela. So I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you all for tuning in. Please support the show if you can. Support independent journalism. I'll be in Belfast on the 14th, so I will see you guys there. Let me pull the poster up on the screen so you guys can see it. Give me a second. I posted it earlier on Twitter, and if you're in Ireland, please make your way so I can see you there with Sean Murray. There it is on the screen. You should be able to see it now. Okay, so on the 14th, I'll be in Belfast. And thank you all for tuning in. Take care. Ma salame. Bye-bye.